Welcome to Ask Quinn, everyone. Welcome to the second day of the format where I ask 4 baseline questions of Shane, and then he's going to interview me, which should be interesting. And so I'm going to, first of all, let Shane take it away and explain more of what he does, and then I'm going to ask him 4 baseline questions, and then I'm going to let him interview me.
All right. It's so nice to be on the show. Thanks, Wynn, for having me.
You are so welcome. So explain more of what you do.
Okay. I'm a journalist and an author. I grew up in Idaho in a small town, and my dad was an engineer, so I grew up taking things apart and figuring out how they worked and putting them back together. And I love doing that. And so when I decided to become a writer, that's kind of what I wanted to do with the world, with science and business and other topics that interested me. So I like to find something, take it apart, figure out how it works, and then put it back together and explain hopefully a little bit different way of thinking about it for the world. And I've done this in journalism for quite a while, and I've written 3 books. My most recent book was about teamwork. It's called Dream Teams, and it's the same thing. I wanted to understand the science of human collaboration, what happens when different people come together and try to work on something or to change something, and why so often that's frustrating. And I wanted to understand whether some of our norms around teamwork actually were right, and of course a lot of we think are when it comes to teamwork and when it comes to just human behavior aren't exactly what they seem. And so I just put out that book, and that's in a nutshell. That's kind of what I do.
And by the way, you guys, I heard Shane on David Cadavy's podcast, loving your work, and David Cadavy has been on this podcast, so there's another plug for this podcast, / there's another plug for Shane, and also love your work. So go listen to Shane's interview on Love Your Work, because I am a journalist too. I'm actually going back to school to study fashion journalism, and one of the things that I'm realizing is that journalists have to be curiosity killed cat, and they have to be creative in their way of thinking. So that's why I wanted to come on and have you interview me and me interview you.
All right.
So my next question to you is, what is your biggest life achievement?
My biggest life achievement? That's such a hard question. I feel like being alive this far is an achievement. I'm really proud of some work that we've done recently, and I co-founded a nonprofit for investigative journalism, which is basically giving voice to voiceless people, finding the truth about stories that people have forgotten about, and investigating corruption, those kinds of things. And a lot of those sorts of stories are hard to get funding for these days, the way the newspaper business is. So co-founded this nonprofit to drum up funds to pay independent journalists to go after stories about things that are happening in their communities that are important, but there's no funding to write about them. And we've funded stories about basically exposing gun traffickers, about judicial corruption, companies poisoning water supplies, and all sorts of stuff that the public needs to know about. And so I'm really proud of that achievement of having launched that, and been a part of some stories that have really changed a lot of people's lives. And for me, I guess as a journalist, as a storyteller, and you can relate to this, that, stories are so much of what makes life great and so much of it makes to be human, and being able to use that power of storytelling for good is really neat. So that's probably what I would answer for that.
And what is your deepest regret?
My deepest regret. I think there's a lot of, I've been an ambitious person and pretty driven, and I think I spent a lot of my teen years and college years and my 20s rather than having fun and taking opportunities to get to know people. I spent a lot of that time just working and being career focused, and I think that served me well because I have a good career that I enjoy. But I do regret not being social when I think there was less cost to it than now. That life gets harder and more complicated. The kinds of things that matter the older you get, and I think I tried to be too serious too young, but you can't go back. So, yeah, I don't know if that's the greatest answer to your question, but
that's fine. That's fine. And if you had to be educated by anyone, who would it be and why?
I love this question. I think I would pick Jackie Chan because he seems like the nicest, funnest guy. And also, I really like to learn karate. And he's just so clever. I feel like he knows a lot of things he could teach.
So you would pick Jackie Chan as your muse, to be educated by him. And what work are you doing specifically? Well, it doesn't have to be specifically for him, but I want to know. What work are you doing specifically for the disabled?
So mental health is really important to me, and it's a really important cause. And it's a type of disability or disorder, depending on what it is that a person's suffering from, that you don't see. And when you do see it, when you do recognize that someone has a mental health issue, it's usually surprising, and people react. And it's also extremely common. And so I think it's important for any disability and mental health included, and in particular, that's important to me because there's people in my life who've have struggles. It's important for people to work together to reach out and to help out. And part of the problem with mental health is the stigma. We, in society, we are nervous about mental health, and we get nervous around people who have mental health issues. And so for me, I think sharing the stories of people and their mental health disorders or challenges or illnesses, and even my own issues with anxiety, sharing that and sharing stories, I think the more that we do that, the more it becomes okay for people to talk about what they're struggling with so that people can help out, so that we can build community. And I think destigmatizing mental health is really important, and I've done a fair bit of journalism on the subject, and I've shared my own stories, and I've helped others share their stories, and you'd be amazed who in your life will come out of the woodwork to talk about what they're going through when you start talking about what you're going through. And so that's really important to me. And I think there's a lot that needs to be done there. Recently the, high profile, suicide losses of Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain, I think have gotten a lot of people talking about depression in particular. Bourdain was a hero of mine, and I know lots of people who know him personally, and they said you'd never have guessed that he was struggling. And I think because he and, in Kate Spade we're so successful, I think a lot of people now are talking about how, hey, even successful people can have problems and can have, can be dealing with mental health challenges, and maybe that means it's okay if I am too. And so, those kinds of tragedies, if we keep talking about them, we share those stories, I think it helps that, hopefully it doesn't have to get to that point the next time we start a national conversation about mental health. So I really care about that.
I definitely agree. Now, you guys, Shane gets to play journalist on me and interview me.
All right. I have some questions. A couple of my favorite questions to ask people. So we can start with maybe my second favorite. I'm curious about a time when you changed your mind about something that was important and hard to change your mind about. And what was it, and why'd you do it?
Now, believe it or not, and I almost changed my mind about doing the Kona Ironman, because at the time I had just lost my mom and my teammate, even though we grew up in the same family, and she's a little more of it's my way or the highway personality, whereas I'm a little more of just go with the flow personality, let's promote cerebral palsy. So I almost backed out of the Kona Ironman. I remember the day she called me, and I was sitting in my office on the landline, and I'm actually staring in my office right now as we do this interview, and I remember saying, "You're nuts. You're absolutely nuts." And the second word almost out of my mouth, so no. At the time, I had to gather a team. I had to prepare myself. I had to prepare the team. I had to prepare my dad, which he let me do it, which I'm like, why did you let me do it? Looking back on it. And so I almost backed out. I went to Kona. We competed, and fortunately, due to the way my teammates stupidly set up the bike, and I call it stupid because she not only was pedaling her own body weight, but pulling my body weight, and so I could not move. I could not help her pedal the bike, and so we got pulled off the Ironman course. And ever since then, we do not talk. We
Oh no.
were estranged because she made my team cry, basically. And she has a personality of it's my way or the highway, and yeah. And so I almost backed out of the Kona Ironman, and now I wish I had backed out of the Kona Ironman. And yes, I know you guys want me to do another one, but to raise awareness for cerebral palsy, but I need to find a totally different teammate that gels with me and my team around me.
Yeah, that's so important. I mean, it's that gelling, the chemistry, right, is really important. Okay, so thank you. So my next question, I love stories, and I think there's a lot of power in fiction to help us to expand the way we think, to expand our minds. So I'm curious what your favorite fiction story or character, or what's your favorite bit of fiction that you in your whole life?
Well, I guess I can plug my own books here. I am a fiction novelist, and if it's not my own work, which you guys can go find on Amazon, just go type in my name, Win Kelly, Kelly, Charles, Chals, and win is spelled WIN, by the way. And so if it's not my own one, I would have to say J.K. Rowling, or my second favorite is Stephen King. Although if I'm in a good mood for Stephen King, I can put up with his scary books. But other than that, J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, she's, magical would be the the pun, I guess, to use, but her writing is magical. And so impactful too. Okay. My next question. What's something that you know how to do that most people don't? And how'd you learn it?
I know how to dictate foreign books. No, that's a secret weapon. That's how I produced 8 books, is through dictation, because I can't type. Even though I have a laptop, I can't type. I had speech dictation on the laptop, which, by the way, that laptop is coming back to me tomorrow. And so I'm mainly all install speech dictation, type my own book away, and type books on it too.
That's great. It's, I guess, getting the punctuation and everything right is, you have to go back and do that, or can you dictate and have it?
It will, if I say period, it will put a period. But I typically dictate what I want to dictate, and then I have a team that makes it look pretty.
Nice. No, there we go. Teamwork again. So, if you could go back and have a conversation, you could take a time machine and go back and visit your younger self. Say when you were the most, most insecure age, I think, is, maybe, middle school or late elementary school. You can go back in time and visit your younger self. What would you tell your younger self? What advice would you give?
Well, it would have to be coming out of elementary school and coming out, going into high school, because like all freshmen, I had the freshman year from hell, and I have CP on top of it. So you can just imagine the little freshman then with CP, walking in Penley and getting knocked over and by a person who knocked into me. Thank you very much. And you can just imagine me coming to a big, huge high school in Aspen, Colorado, which is a very rich town, by the way, and me as a middle-class woman coming to this rich high school, and me coming from a very prestigious private school, which I now work at. I'll be working there for the next 3 years. So it was a huge adjustment, and at that time, my mom was still alive, but she was kind of forcing me to go into education. Yeah. Yeah, I love you, Mom, but don't force the creative going. Don't be forcing a person that loves English class to go into education. And my English teacher actually saved my butt. She got me out of high school. She actually went from teaching English to high school counseling because and she was I was the first year that she did high school counseling, and she actually saved my butt. She said to the special ed department along with my principal, let's get Win out of here, thank you very much, because they wanted me to stay on the straight and narrow path of you get to stay in high school until you're 21. In most states, if you have a documented disability, and it's like, nope, we're not doing that. And they were so shocked when I brought the paperwork home to my family, and I brought the paperwork back the next day with a note from my mom saying, nope, I'm not signing this paperwork, so when can stay. And I think my dad did into it on there too. And they were like, what? And I'm like, this is from my mom. You talk to her, not me. And we all agreed as a family that I should not stay. And I wish my mom had convinced me to go into journalism earlier than I did. Thank you very much. Because I would have been a lot happier camper. And you mentioned mental health. My first boss had a mental health problem. She was depressed. She was almost suicidal. And and this is public, and we were traveling to a early childhood and education conference in Dallas, and we had just landed, coming from Denver to Dallas, and she says, I forgot my medication at my house, and if I don't take my medication, I'm going to go crazy on you. Then starts laughing, and I'm like, really? Really, Dawn? You're dealing with a disabled woman, and you are depressed yourself and need medication, and you're drinking on, she was drinking too on that medication, and it just wasn't the best situation. And my dad actually got me out of there because my mom wasn't the best minister of first impressions. My mom didn't care. She cared about me, but she didn't care about my environment, even though my mom loves me extremely. She just wanted another body to take care of me because she wanted the rest of care. And even though that other body was depressed and on medication, she didn't care. And so my dad got me out of there, and thank the Lord for my dad, because at the time I was becoming depressed because now since changing jobs and I became a happy person, because if you're around depressed people in an adult room where kids are sleeping and you're watching them sleep and not doing anything else, you will become depressed.
Yep. Wow. Well, the other question I wanted to ask, so I wanted to ask about a teacher that you loved. It sounds like you might have just told the story of a teacher you love. Is there another teacher in your past, in your life, that had a big impact on you?
And this is a funny story, because this teacher is actually my calling, and she's still working. She's still teaching kindergarten up to, 25 years plus, and she taught special ed, and she tells me this after the fact. She taught special ed in Pennsylvania with kids that were nonverbal, and so she got a certification in Pennsylvania when the special ed schools were closing, and so no wonder she made an impact on me, and she still does. She will march around. She won't march around and say I'm a disabled advocate, but when things get really very scary at work, I run to her. She backs me up like there's no tomorrow. She knows me really well, and she's also a disabled advocate. So when kindergarten Wynn walked into a classroom with a one-on-one aid, she thought Wynn was best thing on the planet because I had go-go skills. I could walk. I could function like a normal kindergartner, plus I brought a one-on-one aid with me. So she thought I was the easiest kid on planet, and she tells this story. She goes, Wynn, you were the easiest kid. You did what I said. The one-on-one aid helped me too. So she got an extra bad hands out of it.
Wow. That's great. Well, how much time do we have for more questions? I have a couple more if you want to do more. Or
where can people find you? And I'm sorry to cut you off, but I actually have another meeting that I got to go to.
Okay.
So that's why I'm cutting you off. But where can people find you, and where can people get a hold of you?
So if you just go to my name, which is shanesnow.com, or if you Google me, I think it's the first one. That's where anyone can get a hold of me. They can find out about my books or anything else.
And I would like to and we'll talk about this offline. You get offline, Shane and I, but I would love to get involved with your nonprofit in journalism because I think these stories need to be told. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes.
Kids being separated from their parents in Laredo, Texas. Hey, that's when it's awful. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, Shane does, and unless you guys are living under rock, you pretty much know what I'm talking about. And last night they released heartbreaking audio of kids crying and people laughing at them. And so, yeah, but I thank Shane very much for coming on the podcast, and I hope you guys enjoyed another fabulous podcast of Ask Wynn.
Thank you so much.